Gospel of Luke is written as the most orderly of the four Gospels. Luke brings this out, and Luke also would have those qualifications, being that here's a man who is a physician and who is used to laying things out in such an orderly fashion. Matthew himself having been a tax collector, John having been a fisherman. When we look at this passage, it's imperative that we know the time that is at hand. And this passage takes place during the last portion of Jesus' ministry. Theologians refer to this as the year of opposition. At this particular time, they're searching to kill Jesus. They're searching to destroy him. And around the ninth chapter around the 24th verse or so, Jesus says something, and this in itself is one particular block, one particular area. Many times we look at chapters and we think things are so far separated, but the ninth chapter in this area here would be one block. Jesus is on his way towards Jerusalem. And he says in the ninth chapter, around the 22nd or the 24th verse, he says that the Son of Man will suffer many things from the elders and the scribes. He'll suffer many things from the chief leaders, that the Son of Man will be persecuted. He will be executed. He will be crucified, but he will resurrect on the third day. The Bible tells us that the disciples do not really understand this, because before this is ever said, before Jesus speaks these words, he asks them a question. He draws a confession. He asks them, who do men say that he is? And then he asks them, who do you say that I am? And then Peter will be the spokesman for all of them as they are going through. Some say John the Baptist, some Elias. They're talking back and forth. Jesus, then Peter said, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. You are the Messiah, the Mashiach. You are the anointed one. And so Jesus at this time tells them what he's going to give them, the keys of the kingdom. And then he goes on to tell them about his crucifixion and his resurrection. And even though he says this, they don't understand. Because at this time they're thinking that he is going to Jerusalem to accept the kingdom for himself. He is going to Jerusalem and he is going to exalt himself as king. And he's going to once again restore the great kingdom of Israel. Are you flowing with me thus far? It can be very difficult to think such a thing when you're walking with someone like Jesus and you see him healing the sick, you see him raising the dead, you see him having power over demons, you see him having power over nature, you see him being able to tell a storm to shut up and cease and desist, you see him being able to wither a fig tree, you see him being able to do all of these things. He speaks words that you can say to this mountain, move, and if you don't doubt, it will move. You see him doing these things and you have to ask, who can stop this superhuman? And when he draws near Jericho, there is a blind man. And this blind man, and I want you to understand something about a person that's blind at that time. You didn't have the school of the blind. You didn't have all the different programs that you have today. They didn't learn how to read. You didn't have it where you could use your hands and do such things. This was a time that we would consider primitive. Are you with me? We'd say ancient, you might say. Didn't have all of those things. Didn't have anyone to care for them. A blind man would be reduced to being a beggar. Isn't it sad how we have people who have physical sight and they choose to beg rather than make a living? Oh, somebody to hear me in here. Are begging for a living rather than get a trade. And we tend to not understand these things. This man did not have the capacity. But even though he did not have the capacity to work, somehow he had the mental capacity to recognize that Jesus was the Messiah. He refers to him in such a way, Jesus, thou son of David, have mercy on me. And the word says that when he said it, Jesus stood, or he stopped when he heard him. And he asked the man, what would you have me to do? The man said, that I might receive my sight. You got to understand something here. If this man receives his sight, now he can move from being a beggar and he can do work with his hands, if he's never seen before, if he's never done anything before, now he can learn how to do things. He can find something to do and make a living for himself rather than going around begging, depending on somebody's pity or somebody's mercy. Jesus will give him his sight. I want to go back 21st century. How many people do we have who have sight, and when they come to the house of God, instead of saying I want to have spiritual sight from Jesus so that I can do something about myself, how many people do we have that have sight and still don't recognize Jesus? After they heard these things, Jesus had to speak a parable to them, because he wants to make sure that without a doubt they understand what's about to take place. And they also need to understand that they were not on tour watching him to be impressed, but he was doing works and speaking words, teaching them and preparing them for what it is that they were to embark upon. Today, I want to talk with you from the title, and I use the same as a subject. Or you can put this to the Exceeding Abundantly Above series. The value of the pound. And he calls 10 servants, and he delivered unto them 10 pounds. Now understand, 10 servants, 10 pounds. He gave each one a pound. 10 servants, 10 pounds, not 10 pounds each. He had 10 pounds, 10 servants. He equally distributed the pounds. The word pound, mina, a drachma. This was about 1/100th of a talent. So it was a small amount that he gives to them. And then he said something to them. He said for them to occupy. Somebody say occupy. He says, occupy until I come. Pragmatuamahi. Pragmatuamahi. Occupy. That's where we get our English word pragmatic. And so what he is saying here is, I need for you to carry on business. I'm leaving now, but I'm leaving you with a small amount. But this small amount is valuable. I want you to carry on business like a banker or a trader. Carry on business until I come. A certain nobleman went to a far country, received of the kingdom, and he called his servants, delivered them 10 pounds. 10 servants, he delivered them 10 pounds. So he gave each one of the servants a pound. See if I can get this right. He gave each one a pound. He gave each one a pound. That's right, a pound. He gave each one a pound. Each one a pound. Each one a pound. Give him a pound. Give him a pound, and give him a pound. Now while they're standing there, I'm going to bless your hearts here. You want to be blessed? You want to be blessed? Watch this now. Let's see if I can do this for just a minute. I'm going to show you something. You can write this down. I don't have time for you to turn there. But Psalm 119, verse 72 says, the law of thy mouth is better unto me than thousands of gold and silver. The law of thy mouth is better unto me than thousands of gold and silver. The 11th verse says, thy word have I hid in my mouth, that I might not sin against you. I can go right from there. Why? Because the word is better to me than thousands of gold and silver. Every person in here that's born again, has received a pound. And he said, I want you to take this pound and do business with it until I come. Take the pound that I gave you. It's valuable. It has great worth. And it's able to bring great gain. I'm going to receive a kingdom. Use the pound until I get back. If I see somebody not loving Jesus, then they're going to be in a world of trouble. Well, they are part of a world of trouble. So if you love them, let me just help it here. You wouldn't see your child running in the street to stand in front of a car and play chicken with the car day or night and not go snatch him out the street and rebuke him. And if they did it again, you may be a little bit more severe. Why would you let somebody try to run head on against God and say, well, we just suppose you're going to love them straight to hell? Ooh. There are types of love. There's a love of the world and there's a love of God. And if God has given himself, then what I need to do is bring what God has done to bring me out of. Just imagine if everybody felt that way up. Just tell the truth. I know there's some folk in here who just did not. Some folk knew me before I was saved and they just didn't like what I had become. And I know you can say you just got to love him that way. I'd be mad at you. Why'd you love me to hell? Why couldn't you love me to life? You will never wear a crown if you don't work right with the pound. And I'm not trying to rhyme. It just came out that way. You will never wear a crown unless you use the pound. You can't wear a crown if you don't use the word. Now notice this is different than the parable of the talents. The parable of the talents he gave to every man according to his ability. The pound, everybody gets the same thing. Everybody sitting here today hears the same word. But everybody will not be as effective with it. I often say, get the CD, do this, do this. You can take a CD and put it in somebody's hand and people can listen to a CD and then they come in and say, I heard the word that brother so-and-so or sister so-and-so passed on to me and it spoke to my life. Baby, use the pound with technology. I want to know, is there going to be any life changing? Good word, praise God. Is it good to you? If you bring forth fruit as a disciple, then I know that I got a reward from the pound. And I don't have to stop at you. Paul, when Jews didn't want to hear what Paul had to say, they didn't want to hear from the value of the pound. Paul said, fine, I'll go preach to the Gentiles. I won't let you stop me from getting my reward. I refuse to be depressed and feel neglected because somebody does not want to hear the gospel. I'm not understand me, it sounds like I'm talking about when you're going out there in the world and they talk about you like a dog and they say, we don't want your Lord reigning over us. No problem, peace, move on. Because somebody wants him, somebody needs him. I'm not talking about you looking at the people in the church. This message should encourage you to want to go out and do business until he comes. God's taking care of your business. You got a house, you got a car, you got children, you've raised them, you've got your health. Oh, somebody need to hear me here. You got a job so that you can do it. God's taking care of what you needed even when you didn't ask for it because he knew what you needed. Now you better take care. But he says, you're going to do greater works because I'm going to my Father. You're going to toil and labor and do more business and more enterprise. Oh, look, notice we've got it in North America now. it spread. Peter, when he preached on the day of Pentecost, there were more people left than Jesus had left after he fed the 5,000. After he fed the 5,000, there were 12 left and one was overtaken by Satan. Oh, is anybody hearing me in here? And so he says, you have the capacity. I've given you what you need. I've given you my spirit. I've given you my power. I've given you gifts to work along with the pound. What are the gifts for? The gifts authenticate that you are of God. When you bring that, you need to understand, the gifts are not what get them saved. It is the power of God and his word that gets them saved. The gifts show that you are authentically of God. Is somebody hear me in here? So he will give you some abilities to work with the pound that he's given you. He's given me the word and he's given me some power. Oh, somebody ought to bless God in here. You've got enough stuff on the inside of you to turn around a neighborhood. You've got enough stuff on the inside of you to set a fire in a city. You've got enough stuff on the inside of you to turn a county upside down. You've got enough stuff on the inside of you to cause a state to go in revival. It doesn't take but one person to pass the pound on, and that pound begins to pass on to this person and that person, and they spread it, and next thing you know, it's all over the place. Somebody give God some praise in here. Elder Helm, if a man can build an empire off of some money, even though it's going to crumble, surely we can build an empire off of a word that's more valuable than gold and silver, that cannot corrupt, that will endure to the end. Stuff wears out, but the word of God endures forever. We can pass it on. Don't take a dime to pass it on. You can be broke and win souls to God. You can be homeless and win souls to God. You can live in a shack and win souls to God. You can drive a hoopty and win souls to God. You can live in a house and start a ministry. Oh, somebody's in trouble now. That wins souls to God. Somebody give God praise. Somebody give God praise. When the armies would go at one another, there would be trumpets, shofars going off, and men would holler. Because when you got the trumpets going off and you got the men hollering, not only does it intimidate your enemy, but it also does something with the fear on the inside of you. It fires you up. Are you hearing me in here? Because when you go to battle, you don't know if you're going to make it out of there. But if you can just lose your mind in the battle, the only thing you're thinking about is making it through the battle and doing what you got to do. Is there anybody hearing me up in here? See, you can come in here with a lot of stuff on your mind, but when you begin to holler out to the Lord, all that stuff begins to evaporate. All that stuff begins to go away. You can come in and sit quiet, and the same stuff that you had on your mind just might decide to hold you when you leave. I'm not saying it won't go, but there's a good chance it's going to be right there. But if you'll begin to holler when you get ready to fight, if you begin to shout when you've heard the word of the Lord, if you begin to praise because you know he's good, just like Miriam prayed, just like Deborah praised, just like they praised in Jerusalem in the days of Jehoshaphat. Even before they fought the battle, they knew it was God, so they began to praise before God ever raised his hand. Can you praise before you even see God raise his hand? Can you shout before you even see God suppress your enemy? Can you holler because you know God's gonna make a way out of no way?